Can a Baal Teshuva who is from a mixed faith family put himself in an environment that to what extent can he, for the sake of for his family, involve himself in festive?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, first of all, I think there are two dimensions to the question. The first question is the theological question, and then there's a more practical dimension of what can you eat whilst you're there. But I think like this, that family gatherings are okay. If the family gathering has got a religious dimension to it, then it becomes more problematic. Okay. We spoke about this a little while ago, but most families nowadays, especially families that are sort of interfaith families, so I would imagine that the dimension is a lot more of the family getting together, being together, just having a meal together, rather than having religious overtones. Even if some of the paraphernalia that's normally around at that time of the year is there, I don't really think these things. I don't think they mean very much anymore. So I think the idea of the family getting together and being there is not. I don't think that intrinsically is a problem. What might be a problem, of course, is that the food that's being served up is not edible for someone who's keeping kosher. I didn't mean it to sound quite like that, but for somebody who's keeping kosher, they can't eat it. So that might be the cause of, some tension. I don't know. That's something that sort of needs to be thought about how to get around that one. But I don't see it as being a problem particularly. Again, unless you're talking about it's some kind of religious thing, then it's.
The kashrus issues aside, if you forget the kashrus issue, if I was to have a family in the future and my sister or my father invites us over for Christmas Day, games and drinks, which avoids kashrus issue. Putting a family within a kind of, to what extent would it, should I be guarding my family?
Look, I don't know. That's a very delicate question. Do you want, Mitzvah Hashem, do you want your children to be exposed to these kinds of things? That's a good question. I don't know. It's got a lot to do with how you're bringing them up. It's got a lot to do with how sheltered they're going to be. It perhaps has a lot to do with their personalities as well. Again, in theory, the idea of everybody getting together, it's a day off, right? So there's it's holiday time. The idea of everybody getting together and just having a good time together in the afternoon and enjoying each other's company is something which, if anything, forgetting about the fact that it might be that time of the year, I would imagine it's probably a very good idea. Right? Just everyone should know that just because you've become religious, it doesn't mean that you've cut off any ties, and that everybody should know everybody. Cousins should know each other. That part is fine. It really is. But I'm not sure about the other part. It's very very subjective. It's very personal. If you've got. Look, I think the bottom line is like this, right? When you've got an interfaith marriage, right? And you've got children that have got a non-Jewish grandparent, a non-Jewish grandfather in this case, right? So that's what they've got. You can't. There's Baruch Hashem, if there's a relationship between everybody and it's good and it's healthy, it's not something which can be denied. It's there. It exists. So I don't think that that's something which needs to be the cause of a lot of angst. I really don't. That's who we are. That's what we have. Like they say in Hebrew, Zeh ma sheyesh. That's what there is. So that part, I really don't think that part is such a big issue. Again, if as long as it doesn't have religious overtones to it. If it does have religious, so we're talking about going to visit family on the 25th of December. Oh. That time of the year. Yeah. So non-Jewish family, obviously, right? Right. So I think again, if it's got religious overtones, it becomes a problem. Participating in something like that is not so simple anymore. However, I would say like this, I really would, that if it comes to that, and Baruch Hashem, you're married and you've got children, and I would say, maybe at that point, you need to measure what you feel. If there's any fallout, how much you feel it's going to be. from both sides, you know, from the parents' side and from the children's side, and then maybe if needs be to go ask a question at the time. Go and ask your local Orthodox rabbi. What do you reckon? Might be possible, for example, if just to avoid it being overtly religious, right? So perhaps instead of going on the 25th of December, to do it on the 26th of December, which is also a holiday. I don't know if it's a holiday in America, but in England it's a holiday. And it could just be that the 25th of December is just not convenient for you to be able to make it, you know, just quite by chance. But how about if we all meet up on the 26th instead? Another possibility, which is something to think about. Again, all of this is like food for thought at the moment. But the other alternative is to have the family come to you. That way, it really is just a family gathering, and then you can be in charge of the food that's being served up. And if you want, you can serve some things that they might be familiar with. But it just it's everybody coming around to you. It's a family gathering. It's having a meal together, or it's having drinks and bridge rolls together. I don't know, afternoon tea, whatever it is. And
serving a kosher mince pie wouldn't be so.
I don't think so. No. My mother, she had all kinds of people that she was involved with. She was involved in all kinds of organizations, and she was involved with all kinds of people that were, needy people. And she at that time of the year, she used to make mince pies and give them out. Whatever were left, because we used to eat lots of them. But they were pretty good. I must admit, they were pretty good. I don't see that as being a problem. Maybe making a Christmas pie, Christmas pudding. What's it called? Christmas pudding. That incredible ball of cholesterol. So, maybe that's something that you should steer away from. That's a little bit too overt. But other things. I don't know. Is there a problem? Is there a problem with eating turkey? A turkey lunch on that day? I don't think so. As long as it's being done just for the family, I think it's okay.
Yeah, I don't see myself giving up that. It's not religious for us at all.
Good.
Whatsoever.
Good, great. The less the better, really. Yeah. Which means if it's just a family, gathering.
Yeah, that happens to have a tree and presents.
Yeah. So just before you came in, I was saying that even if some of the symbols are there, but they don't really mean anything. Anything. Unfortunately, in a lot of Jewish families, when it comes to Hanukkah, they also just have the symbols. They'll have a menorah and they'll give out presents, but it really, unfortunately, doesn't have any kind of religious significance whatsoever. So over here, it works in your benefit. It's good.
Yeah, it's great.
Which means that, aside from the presents, but stop being so mercenary. Gosh. But aside from that, it's just the idea of getting together. I think it's you're living with a reality. The reality is that there's Mitzvah Hashem, you'll get married and have children. There'll be a grandparent who's not Jewish.
Yeah, amen.
Right. Yeah. So fine. Yeah. That's a reality that your children should they have exposure to them? Yeah, for sure. It's part of the family, right?
Right.
And there has to be a way of working out how to be able to. To sell this to your children and sell it to the grandfather as well, so that everybody can get on together. Everyone can enjoy each other's company, and even the grandfather should be able to have a good, healthy relationship with his grandchildren. And it's a balancing act, that's for sure. Because part of the problem is that if somebody is not Jewish and if somebody's not a religious Jew, then there really is there's no understanding of the requirements, they're very complex. Mm-hmm. What's the big deal? All I did was just give him a cheese sandwich. I know he can't eat meat. I know that, right? So I gave him a cheese sandwich. What's the big deal? Mm-hmm. And in their eyes, of course, it's not a big deal. And they went out of their way to make sure that it wasn't meat and it was only milk. But it's a problem because the bread is a problem and the cheese is a problem and who knows what, right? So it's a balancing act, and very often there can be a lot of tension. But I believe this 100%, that if you have got a good, healthy relationship yourself with the person, all of these things can be got over. They really can. If it's good, the person knows that despite the fact that you're weird, and that you're, you know, like you're Meshuggah Frum, right? Despite that you love them and you care for them, then that will transcend everything. It really will.
Can I extend the question slightly? Just because I'm thinking of a situation that for many years growing up, we would have, when my parents were together, we would have Christmas decorations and everything. And so for the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years or so, I haven't. When I was living with my mother, we didn't have any kind of decorations. But my dad, rightly so, goes all out at Christmas and, you know, makes his house look fantastic and, you know, puts up lots of trees and stuff. And it became kind of more of a tradition that because I wasn't doing anything at home, I would go and help him. You know, he would need my help putting up lights and my granny too. You know, she's 87 years old and she always asks for me to help her put her Christmas tree up for her and decorate it for her.
Yeah.
I suppose the question is, in involving myself in assembling Christmas decorations, is that an issue? Am I? And then the other thing is it? If it is an issue, is it not a case of it's kind of a chesed for me to help, for example, with my grandmother?
Yeah. I think like this. I mean, again, if this stuff is going up for religious reasons, then it's a problem. If it's just going up because it makes the house look nice, it's a lot less problematic. Is this something that a good Jewish boy should be doing? Well, maybe not. You know, maybe there are other pastimes that might be, you know, like go around kissing mezuzahs or something.
Any other situation would be no, you better not. But in the situation where it's my father and it's my grandmother,
so I would say like this. I would say that first of all, you know, Mitzvah Hashem. When you finally get back over there and you've established yourself and you're up and running and doing all the things that you need to be doing, it is entirely conceivable that it may not work out for logistic reasons. And if that's the case, then, you know, I think that perhaps that might be okay. I'm avoiding using the word good because I don't want to upset you, but that might be, you know, if you for example you've got a job that doesn't allow you to be in the area, right? You're traveling, whatever it is. If not, I do think that in order to retain some kind of family balance over here, right? In order to make sure that the connection is still there, you know. Maybe it's okay to do it.
Are there any halachic issues that would say you shouldn't do it?
Well, again, if this is religious, then
when you say if it's religious, we're putting the decorations up to commemorate a Christian festival, I'm not hanging up a picture of
right. So
Jesus.
Again, the question is like this: are they doing it because they believe in it, or are they doing it because they like the way the house looks?
Because they're Christians and it's Christmas and that's what they do at Christmas. They put up decorations.
It sounds like people lighting the menorah.
It is a bit like that. They're not religious. You know, they don't go to church.
Yeah.
But they want to commemorate Christmas because it's part of their tradition. It's part of their minhag, you could say.
I mean, like when you light a menorah, like you say a bracha. When you put up the decorations,
yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like, I understand that it might not be the most appropriate thing, but the honest question is, let's say it was a case of, if it was a case of there's a halacha that says you should not be doing this, I would be thinking, okay, well, maybe there's a way I can get around it. The question of, or maybe it would be logistically not possible, won't work in my situation, because my father will say to me a few months before Christmas, we'll work around you, we want you to come and help us, let me know when you're free. So I can't always not be free.
Right.
And if it's a case of me retaining a connection with my family, even if I at this point don't feel completely comfortable doing it, I would want to do it, if not for the fact that I was keeping a connection with my family.
I do feel that there is an intrinsic difference between fairy lights and the tree.
Really?
You know those little coloured lights that get put up and to decorate. You know, I don't know. I don't know. They have that. They don't have that in America.
Why would you think?
Because the origins of the tree are actually pagan.
Right.
Where does the origin of the tree really come from? It comes from the idea that it's an evergreen, and it's 25th of December is now past the middle of the winter. It's past the shortest day of the year is when? The 21st, right? 21st, right? So it's past the height of the winter, and in pagan cultures going back a long way, they would take an evergreen because that was the only thing that was growing. It was green, right? And they would worship that, as that's it now. That the winter, we're now moving towards the spring, which means that things are going to start rejuvenating, and the idea of having something green, something growing, was very important to them. The tree itself, regardless of why the tree is being put up today, does have its origins in something which is pretty much forbidden. That's why putting up lights and putting up tinsel, I mean, all this stuff is manufactured in Taiwan, and it doesn't really have very much of an anything to it. My cousin told me that when he first got married, he came to Israel, and it was Sukkot, and he got his wife had cousins in Geula, and they went to visit them, and the little kid opens the door and he says, "Come and see the Rebbes." And he takes them into their sukkah, and they've got like these tinsel Santa Clauses, right, hanging from the sukkah, because it's like he looks like a Hasidic Rebbe with a red coat instead of a black one. It's like come and see the Rebbes. And my cousin said, coming from England, he was completely and absolutely, it just like took his breath away. He said that they were so, for them it didn't mean a thing. Had no meaning whatsoever. It was just Sukkot decorations.
So when you're saying the concept of putting a tree up is forbidden, are you talking halacha? Or are you talking?
I am saying, given the choice between the two, right? That I think that the tree is more problematic than the lights are. That's what I think.
Okay. And if an 87-year-old grandmother who can't put the tree up herself desperately needs your help, would like your help, is there ever a situation where the only reason I'm asking, I'm being quite specific, like if it's a halacha or not, is because if it's better not to do it, I understand, but if it's the choice between doing a great act, by the way, can you do an act of chesed towards it?
Yeah, for sure.
So if it's a case of doing a great act of chesed towards your elderly grandmother, or doing something which isn't ideal, I know which one I would go for, and if I decide to hold on that level, I don't want to be committing any kind of sin.
Right.
I'm asking a different question, but you did.
What would happen if you didn't do it? Who would do it instead?
Someone else would do it. But it's one of my cousins would do it, or my father would help. But it's just for her to know. I think she's of the mindset, like she's involved herself in my Jewish life, and she would like to think that I'm in some way involving myself in her life as well. And if I say I'm not going to do it, I worry that that's me making a statement towards her that I can't.
Which I would not. First of all, even if the answer is no, I would not suggest that you say it like that. Right? I really wouldn't. I would suggest that something else is done in order to get around the problem. I don't think this is something that is necessarily going to be understood. You're quite right. If she's going out of her way to interest herself in what you're doing religiously, then it certainly in her mind requires a quid pro quo. And I think she's right. The problem over here is it's a technical problem, which is certain things are okay and certain things are not okay. And if you want, I can look into the tree and see if it's get a definitive yes or no over here.
That'd be interesting if you.
But I do think that if the answer is no, that it should really be a case of gosh, Granny, I've done my back in. I can't. I'm not sure that I'm not. I'm not even sure that I can pick up a feather right now. And have somebody else. But to be involved in other things instead. Which is, understand, like, for sure to be involved in your grandmother's life. I think it's very, very important. I really do. First of all, your grandmother needs to see that you're becoming religious hasn't turned you into some nasty, mean, thoughtless person, right? You might have been a nasty, mean, thoughtless person to begin with, so then it doesn't make any difference, does it? But quite the opposite, that you're becoming religious has enhanced your sensitivity. It's made you more aware of what she needs and to try to help her out and whatever that is, just within sight of what's okay, rather than stepping over into things that are possibly not okay. So an example, is there any problem with taking your grandmother out shopping and buying non-kosher meat for her? None whatsoever. that's fine, that's great, and if it's going to help her, it's a great thing to do. I remember as a kid, just after as a kid, I was just before and after my bar mitzvah, every Sunday, I used to, actually, maybe it couldn't have been Sunday, I think, because I think the shops were closed. You know what, I don't remember, but I used to go once a week, I used to go with her shopping. Right, that was my job, I had to go with her shopping. She lived not very far away from us, and so we went shopping together, and I had to schlep all the stuff back. That was really why I was there. And that's an important thing to do, right? Over here, it's even more important, I think, because again, to retain the relationship, it's very, very important. Just not to do things you're not allowed to do. So I'm pleading I'll look into it and see what's what. We had a Talmud here several years ago, who actually his parnasa was Christmas trees.
No way.
Yeah, he would start in October. He had apparently the forests where you can go that are owned by landowners, right? And the forests that you can see in America, down in the south of America, near very very frum, very Christian areas, and he said, you went to these forests and you cut them down yourself. He was a real, hefty guy. He said you bought them for $2 or $3 each. And he would load up trailers, and then you sold them. He says, real good ones you could sell for like $200 or $300 a go. And he said it kept him going all year. He would work October, November, end of October, the whole of November, and then up until towards the end of December. And he said he made enough money to keep him going for the whole year on that. Again, is that a great job for a good Jewish boy? Yeah.
Just selling trees.
Yeah. Selling trees. So again, I don't know, it's interesting. He never asked me and I never said anything. It could be because he was selling these things in religious areas. Right? There were Christians who believed in this stuff, right? So I don't know, perhaps it is a problem for him. I don't know. He never asked and I never said anything. And he was here for I don't know, 8-9 months or something, and then he had to go back because it was the season. And he never came back again.
I'm really uncomfortable with sometimes I hear the frum community talk very negatively about Jews that aren't observant or intermarriage, and I'm very uncomfortable with that, particularly because my mom's intermarried. She got a divorce, but they're talking about my mother.
Good. Okay.
And my brother too, because he doesn't believe this stuff. He's more along the lines of agnostic. And
I'm disturbed by it as well, actually.
Yeah.
I find that I really don't think that the Jewish people should be dabbling in bigotry. I really don't. Yeah. We are the most picked upon people in the world throughout history. We are experts in the other end of bigotry, right? We're the experts of being the recipients of bigotry and racism, right. and you name it. And it's been. I would have thought that the Jewish people really need to be, so incredibly sensitive about this stuff. Where does it come from? I mean, I'm not justifying any of it. Don't misunderstand me. I think it's wrong. I really do. And I'm sorry, I'm truly sorry that you've experienced it, because it's not something you should have experienced. I imagine that it really just stems from, we try to be very insular. And when somebody's insular, when you live a certain kind of a lifestyle, when you're exposed to things that are not part of your lifestyle, so people react. And right, so sometimes if you react, it's like, oh, that's interesting, or oh gosh, that's disgusting. It's like different reactions for different people, and I think it's terrible, absolutely terrible, that Jews look down on other Jews because they aren't on the same religious level that they are. I mean, that's ridiculous. It really is. Yeah, somebody once defined, I think it's a very very clever definition, that I'm okay But anyone who keeps less than I am is a bum, and anyone who keeps more than me is a fanatic. And everybody thinks like that, which means that you think like that, and you think like that, and I think like that, and you think like that, and everybody's thinking the same thing. Everyone's got their own okay, right? And I think it's terrible that people look down at other people just because they're not keeping whatever they're keeping. You know, it could be, for example, maybe this person isn't Orthodox, but they don't think bad about other people. Whoops, right? So, okay, so where does that put me at the moment, right? I keep lots of mitzvahs, but I think badly about other people that don't, right? So who's better over here? I don't know. Kodesh Baruch Hu doesn't want us to look down at other people because they're not keeping mitzvahs. Kodesh Baruch Hu doesn't want us to look down at people because they're not Jewish. You know, it's very sad that the word goyim, goy, just means a nation. In the Torah, it just means a nation. The Jewish people are also called a goy. We're a goy kadosh. We're a holy nation, right? It's got a. Over the years, it's picked up a derogatory connotation to it. So goy is like it's got something negative to it.
My mum gets so angry whenever I use the word. We had a discussion with her last.
Good. I'll tell you what. I think she's right. Actually,
you shouldn't say that word.
I personally, you won't hear me say it. If you do, it'll be in a very specific context. So if I'm quoting somebody, or if I'm referring to something, a passage from the Torah, which is talking about the different nations of the world, or talking about us, that's one thing. But to call a non-Jew a goy, it was a perfectly respectful definition at one point, but I don't think it is anymore. Just call them non-Jews. That's all.
What I call them.
We're all created b'tzelem Elokim. We're all created in the image of God, and I think that a little bit of sensitivity and a little bit of taking other people's feelings into account wouldn't go amiss, even amongst the Orthodox communities. I really do. Calling people who are black, calling them names that have got negative connotations, even though they don't mean it. That's just the way they're called. That's a lack of sensitivity. It's wrong. It's just wrong. It really is. And again, don't misunderstand me. No Jewish boy should get married to a non-Jewish girl, and no Jewish girl should get married to a non-Jewish boy. We're supposed to marry each other. That's what God wants from us. But if it happens, good, it happens. So what now? So what? I always tell everybody, I've never come across anybody who became Orthodox. I never met anybody who became a Baal Tshuva because somebody threw a rock through their windshield on Shabbos because they were driving through the area. Isn't that strange? I've never met anybody like that. I've met plenty of people that became Orthodox because they were exposed to beautiful families and beautiful Shabbos and beautiful, you name it, right? But I've never come across anyone who became Orthodox because of some kind of intensely negative behavior. And I don't, I don't get it. I just don't. I don't get why people imagine that it's an acceptable thing to do. I had a friend who told me he was in Australia. It was Erev Yom Kippur, and he was on his way. He was in Melbourne. He was on his way to shul, and he says he's just walking down the street, and he says that a pickup truck comes barreling down the road. He said with these three greasy rednecks inside of it, and they see him. They start screaming out, "Filthy Jew! You filthy Yid!" And he says to himself, that's outrageous. He says, it's Erev Yom Kippur. I've been to the mikveh. I've had a shower. He says, who are you calling filthy, for goodness sake? These guys like covered in grime and dust and greasy hair but he told me that it taught him. He said he was hurt, right? And he said he suddenly realized, that sometimes also he would call other people by names. And he realized that, names are, these things hurt, right? And hearing other people say that hurts as well. And I think we have to be a lot more careful, I really do. We live in a reality where intermarriages exist, that's quite prevalent in certain places, and it's not enough just to say, fuya, those people are terrible. That's ridiculous, isn't it? We need to, whatever. I think it's something we all need to work on. I really do. This idea of just being a little bit more sensitive towards other people, who they are and what they are and what they're doing.
So I come across it very frequently. daily basis, you know.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
that's not bad. That's not good. Sorry, that's no. I meant that was a Freudian slip. It really was. That's not good at all. It really isn't.
And if like I don't want to bring my like family into the fold at all because of this kind of stuff. You know, like I don't feel comfortable inviting them to a Shabbos dinner or something. You know, just for them to check it out. It's like, you're telling them, you know? It's like they...
You know, I guess it depends who they are, right? But
Yeah.
if they're the kind of people who are going to be able to hear what you're saying, then I think it's not only do I think it's a good idea, I think it might even be a little bit of an obligation to tell them actually.
Yeah.
I mean, here for example, you've got somebody like yourself coming round. They don't know your background. They know that you've been sent there for a Shabbos, you know, have a Shabbos experience, right?
Yeah.
And there they are talking derogatorily about, for example, intermarriage, not knowing that you're a product of intermarriage.
Right.
That's kind of, I think that's very sad, I really do.
I get the same thing the whole time as well.
I think it's very sad. I mean, again, if it's people who know you, they know your background, and they say these things because they want to rile you up, and you know, and that's something else. You know, they're just teasing you. That's something else. But it's something that people are saying. They shouldn't be saying things like that. They just shouldn't. The Torah says like this, right? I mean, again, it's not an optimal thing, but a person who's been born to a Jewish mother is Jewish, 100% Jewish, right? So what happens? Am I less now than I was? Because it doesn't make any sense. And like I said, aside from everything else, the only way that we're going to be able to influence people, the only way that we're going to be able to show people the importance of being Jewish and the beauty of being Jewish is if we're actually nice. I always tell everybody, you should know that the most powerful weapon in the kiruv, in the outreach armory, is just being disgustingly, revoltingly nice. I'm not kidding. I'm really not. It's got a lot less to do with how much you know, and it's got a lot less to do with you know, how quick you are to answer questions, and it's got a lot more just to do with, you know, project an enthusiasm for being Orthodox yourself. You know, to project a passion, you're happy that you've got to keep the mitzvahs, and you're happy to be living a life like this, but also to be thinking about everybody else. It's not, you know, it's a mitzvah that's incumbent upon all of us.
To what? To be nice?
But first of all, it says, "V'ahavta l'recha kamocha." You should love your fellow man like yourself, right? That Rabbi Akiva says that zeh klal gadol b'Torah. That's the most important. That's like the most important rule in the Torah. To love your fellow man like yourself.
Does it mean your fellow Jew or just your fellow man?
Let's start. You know what? Let's start off with fellow Jews, right? Let's start off with that and see how we go. Right?
Because, I mean, then there's some rampant racism sometimes that goes along in the community.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's not good. It really is not good.
Like, I've been around the world, you know, and like I have a lot of different types of friends. Like, it's really bad. Yeah. Not here, just like in the community. Like,
it can be quite disillusioning when we're being taught from a Baltimore perspective the importance of respect and chesed in it, and from my perception is not always, but a lot of the time within the from birth community, that seems to be completely lacking. Like this concept of being a light unto the nations, I've seen so many within a kiruv world you don't see it, but outside of that world, like I look at Jewish people around some parts that we're living in here, and I think, are you guys learning a different kind of Judaism to what we're being taught here? Because it's nowhere in my Judaism does this have a place.
Pass me the thing. Yeah, let's just.
And is there any attempt being made to correct this behaviour?
Yeah,
well,
nothing's.
But what's the problem? The problem is like this: it is an attempt being made to correct the behaviour. I think the attempts are being made. If anything, they're being made in a subliminal way, which means that the great leaders, the great Torah scholars of the generation, they all share that the one thing that threads them all together is not so much their brilliance, but their incredible personalities, right? And that's something which we're supposed to be learning. That with it's again, am I going to be? I would say more than that, right? Am I going to be the most brilliant person in the generation? No, I'm not. Am I going to be like that great rabbi in his Torah knowledge and his width and breadth of understanding? No, I'm not. But you know what? I can. Everybody is capable of matching him up when it comes to what are called midot, right? Personality, characteristics. Everybody can do that. Midot that's got nothing to do with how much Torah you know. The more Torah you know, the better you're able to fine tune your midot, right? Yeah. But the idea of being able to be like that, that's something which is anybody can do that. We say here in the morning, I want you to hear this because it's a lesson that stayed with me for an awful long time, decades. We say in the morning, before we get going, at the end of what's called Birkat Torah, before we get going with davening, so we say, I don't want to go through the explanation right now, but you get it's like a win-win over here. You get reward in this world and you get reward in the world to come for all these things over here. And the list is almost entirely centered around doing good things to other people. That's a very beautiful list. Kibbut Avayim, honoring your parents, doing chesed, having guests, visiting the sick, marrying off brides, escorting the dead, right? Bringing peace between people. It's a very beautiful list, right? And then at the end it says, "V'talmud Torah k'neged kulam," and learning Torah is the equivalent of all of these things. Now, when I was a teenager, I had a real problem with this. It used to bother me terribly. Why? Because we all know people who are incredibly good people. They're not orthodox. They're the kind of people you rely upon entirely, the kind of people that you love to be around, the kind of people always running around looking to help other people, right? They're not orthodox, but they're lovely, lovely people. And unfortunately, there are people out there who are the most incredible Talmidei Chachamim, incredible scholars, and their personalities are shot to pieces. They won't give you the time of day. They won't help with anything.
They won't even hold the door for you.
Nothing, right? And I never understood, what do you mean Talmud Torah k'neged kulam? How can you say that? How can you say that learning Torah is equivalent to all of these things? If you had to choose between spending a day together with somebody who's not orthodox, who's a beautiful person, or spending your day together with somebody who's the most incredible Talmud scholar, he just doesn't have to be a nice person, who would you choose to be with? It's a no-brainer, right? We all know what the answer is. So I went to my Rabbi in London to ask him. It bothered me, especially as a teenager. It bothered me. I don't want to say this. It's like, so he told me the most incredible thing, and it stuck with me all these years, decades. It stuck with me. He says like this: the function of learning Torah is to turn you into a better person. The problem in inverted commas with being a good person who's not orthodox is that it won't necessarily draw you towards God. You're intrinsically a good person, which you'll go around being good to everybody and helping everybody, but it may not enhance your spiritual relationship. He says, but most people are not like that. Most people are selfish, and most people need to be taught how to think about other people. Right? And that's what the Torah does. The Torah allows you to learn about all these things you need to do, and then you have to apply them. You hear the idea? And then he told me a phrase. This is a bit that stuck in my mind all these years. He told me like this. He says, somebody who learns Torah every day and it does not turn him into a better person, every single word of Torah he learns is flawed. Because the function of learning Torah is what? To become a better person. Yeah. But if you've got somebody who's sitting in a base of medrash somewhere and he's learning Yom V'Layla, day and night, he's learning and he knows everything forwards and backwards and upside down and inside out, but it didn't touch his inner being, right? It didn't turn him into a better person, then every single word that he's learned has got a flaw in it somewhere. It's the most astonishing thing, right? It doesn't stop him from being he's an incredible Talmid Chacham for sure, right? He's a scholar. He knows everything, but... So there's a phrase, I saw a beautiful idea. There's a phrase in the Gemara that they describe one of the rabbis in the Gemara, and they say, Talmudoi b'yodoi, that his Torah learning was in his hands. So the Bali Amusa, right, the rabbis who are trying to make us into better people, they say, what do you mean Talmudoi b'yodoi? What do you mean his Torah learning is in his hands? Your Torah learning is in your head, isn't it? So he said, no, because the whole function of the Torah learning is what? Is to bring it out into the open. right? To do mitzvahs and to do chesed and to be involved in doing tzedakah and to become a better person. That comes out through your hands, not through your head, right? In my head, I'm a good person. That doesn't make any sense, right? And that's really what it's all about. And when you hear, when you hear these bigotry and racism, that it really should bother you. It really should. And even if you weren't coming from the background that you're coming from, it should bother you. It bothers me. It bothers me terribly to hear these things. I don't understand. I don't understand how a Jew can be a bigot. I just don't. I can understand how Jews can be scared. I can understand how Jews can like circle the wagons, right? When things start getting bad, and to be very, very suspicious and very, 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 very wary of everybody on the outside. I can understand that. Yeah. Jewish history, that's what it's all about, right? Yeah. But from there to step into the world of bigotry, that's no good. And I honestly think that if you're in an environment where you feel that if you say something, maybe someone will listen, maybe it'll actually make a difference, then I think you should say, hey, you know what? I'm sorry to draw this to your attention, but I don't think that, I don't think it's okay to say that. You word it however you think is the best way to word it.
If someone's speaking badly about a non-Jew and then you say, by the way, my father's not Jewish, that could embarrass them.
Yeah, okay, so maybe, if you're sitting at somebody's Friday night table and the whole family's over there, right? So, to say it in front of them like that, maybe it's not a great idea, but afterwards when you're saying thank you, just to draw the person aside to one side and say, listen, you said a lot of, thank you very much, you said a lot of beautiful things at the table, but by the way, you should just know, if you want, you can reinforce it. You can say that you've heard that it's forbidden for Jews to talk like that.
About non-Jews?
Yeah.
What does it say that?
Again, I don't think it's something that needs to be said. I don't think it's something that needs to be written at all. I think it's something which is so obvious.
I think so too, but I hear rabbis talk negatively about non-Jews.
I don't get it. I don't understand. I just don't. But it's a shame. Look, you know what? Maybe we'll start. We can start to change things a little bit by little bit.